Well, in this video, I'm going to compare the top 5 teams in college basketball dating back to the preseason, the top 5 teams currently ranked in the top 5. So in the preseason, Kentucky was number 1, Michigan State was 2nd, Louisville was 3rd, Duke was 4th, and Kansas was 5th. And now you've got Arizona at 1, Syracuse at 2, Wisconsin at 3, Michigan State at 4, and Wichita State at 5. And earlier this week, we did an article on draftutopia.com where I broke down the 4 best teams most likely to make the Final Four, and 4 of the 5 teams mentioned in this week's top 5 made that list. So you look at that, and pretty accurate, pretty comparable stuff. So let's take a look at the top 5 teams from the preseason and compare them to the top 5 teams now. And we'll start with the teams that didn't live up to the hype. The Kansas Jayhawks were 5th on this list, but they lost to San Diego State at home. Andrew Wiggins, the small forward for the Kansas Jayhawks, was projected to be the number 1 pick in the 2014 NBA draft heading into this year, but the guy on Duke, small forward Jabari Parker, has officially dethroned him. I didn't want to buy into the Jabari Parker hype at first. I did scouting reports on both players coming out of high school. I thought Andrew Wiggins was the guy. Wasn't sold on Jabari Parker. I thought there were some flaws to his game, but when you lose to San Diego State at home, you validated that you're not a number 1 overall pick. You can't be that guy. I still think Wiggins could have the better NBA career, but at this point, Jabari Parker has placed himself in prime position to be the number 1 overall pick in June's NBA draft. Duke hasn't lived up to the hype either in terms of winning games. The Louisville Cardinals lost to Kentucky in Kentucky, and Kentucky has all this talent: Willie Cauley-Stein, Julius Randle, James Young, Alex Poitras, the Harrison brothers, Andrew and Aaron Harrison. They got 6 players that could go in the first round of this year's NBA draft. And only 3 of them, the freshmen, look like good quality starters. The 3 freshmen, the 3 5-star recruits, are quality starters, and the other guys are bench players that should go on a team that needs depth on the bench. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I can tell you for certain that all 6 of these guys are probably going to go in the top 20 overall. And Calipari's going to have another strong year of recruiting and rebuilding, which he will because he's Calipari. But they don't have the team chemistry or the discipline of a Final Four team. But I could see this Kentucky Wildcats team doing better than last year's team, and I could see them making a run to the Elite 8, like they did a few years ago before Calipari made the Final Four and eventually got the Wildcats their first title appearance. So this does look like an Elite 8 team. So now let's look at the 4 teams, the Final 5 teams. Wichita State, they have shocked everybody. They shocked people in 2013 when they made the Final Four. They were ahead 17-13 against Louisville before Louisville cut down the nets. Now they're 17-0 this year, and they look like a top 5 team with Freddie Van Vliet and Cleanthony Early. Those are some awesome names for basketball players, by the way. And Early looks like an NBA prospect, even though he's a graduate after this season. He's 6'8", he's 219, he plays power forward for Wichita State, but you can move him to small forward. He has that agility and versatility off the point of attack. You have to like that about him, and as long as Wichita State keeps winning games, why not take Cleanthony Early in the second round of the NBA draft? Because there's 60 picks, and there's so many good players in college basketball that just they don't make the cut. They're seniors, they're quality players, but you've got all this sample size of prospects. You got the top 40 scorers, top 40 field goal percentage players, top 40 assist players, top 40 in steals. Like, you've got all these different categories for college basketball players, and only a select few make the cut. And then you've got the 5-star recruits coming out of high school and stuff. And then you've got 5-star recruits from the previous year. Like, that's your whole sample size of NBA draft prospects, and only 60 of those 200, 300 players end up making the cut. So, in the top 5, Those 5-star recruits in high school basically take up 10 to 15 of those picks. So you're already limited in terms of size and numbers. In terms of numbers game, there's a limit to what you have to work with. But you look at Wichita State, they are underrated. The number 4 team, the Michigan State Spartans, they are my pick to win the title as of now. You watched Michigan State dominate Kentucky up at Slippery Rock. I watched that game. I watched it with some of my friends in a room, the end of the game, and Michigan State took control and they asserted themselves as that team. And if you didn't watch that game, you should have seen them against Ohio State in overtime. I know Ohio State put up an impressive run, and they brought things together. Their head coach, Thad Matta, he's one of the more disciplined players, but Tom Izzo, he's too disciplined. He's too structure-oriented. Big Ten has the best coaches in college basketball outside of the ACC, and it's debatable whether the Big Ten or the ACC's got the better coaches. Michigan State's only loss came in the Big Ten Challenge against the North Carolina Tar Heels. And Michigan State has Keith Appling in the top 40 in three-pointers. Gary Harris and Adrian Payne are 2 NBA prospects. You've got other guys like Kenny Kaminsky. He can hit the three-pointer. And these guys play good defense, too. And they've shown they can play in big games against big opponents. 2-0, 2-1 if you consider North Carolina a top 25 team. James McAdoo got suspended from the team. I don't think North Carolina is a top 25 team anymore, but they beat Michigan State. That counts as a quality win, and I think that loss, it was a fluke. Michigan State just wasn't prepared. I think they got a little too overconfident, and North Carolina capitalized on that because Roy Williams is one of the most disciplined coaches in college basketball. So that one loss motivated Michigan State to play better, motivated them to perform better, and they're a team that's faced big game opponents. And their next big game opponent will come on February 9th against the Wisconsin Badgers, who are undefeated. They are 16-0 compared to Michigan State's 15-1 record, where Michigan State is 2-1 against big game opponents. Wisconsin, it doesn't feel like they've faced a big game opponent yet, and I just feel like the Badgers are going to lose to somebody in the Big Ten soon. Whether it's the Purdue Boilermakers, Ohio State, Michigan State, whether they lose to a team like Minnesota or Penn State, Michigan, a team that maybe nobody expects like Northwestern, in an upset where Northwestern storms the field after the game. I feel like the Wisconsin Badgers are due for a loss at some point. Maybe the Indiana Hoosiers throw a chair at one of Wisconsin's point guards, a la Bob Knight. That's not going to happen. With stricter officiating, no more Bob Knight, that's not going to happen, no matter how much we'd like to see it happen. Nobody wants to see that happen, but the media, they get way too emotionally invested in that kind of stuff. So Wisconsin, 16-0, they remain unbeaten. And then you have Syracuse and Arizona, who continue to topple the top 2 in college basketball. Syracuse, they don't really have an NBA prospect this year, but despite that, they're more disciplined than they've been in years past, and Jim Boeheim knows how to get the best out of his players. But the whole Bernie Fied incident, Syracuse wants to win another title and bury those demons. And then the Arizona Wildcats, they're led by power forward Aaron Gordon. I think him and Jabari Parker are now the top 2 prospects in this year's NBA draft. With Andrew Wiggins' home loss to San Diego State, he's sort of taken himself out of the running to be a top pick, and he's competing against Aaron Gordon to be a top 2 pick. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because I think Aaron Gordon, if he keeps playing at a high level, he can eventually challenge Jabari Parker to be that top pick. But it's probably going to be Jabari Parker, Andrew Wiggins, Aaron Gordon, but I think Gordon could surpass Andrew Wiggins, and I would take Aaron Gordon ahead of Andrew Wiggins at this point, simply because of his production. And both these guys are complete players that are going to turn your team around. But if you need small forward and power forward help, I'd go with Aaron Gordon first. He's playing better. He's winning more games. And that's what it's all about right now. It's who can win. People don't care about, well, they do care about the production and Andrew Wiggins was the #1 overall recruit in the nation, but as long as the Arizona Wildcats win, they play at a high level, they don't lose games, we don't see a weakness in Aaron Gordon's game, well, you got to go with the Wildcats. But Aaron Gordon only scored 10 points. UCLA limited him to 6 in the first half. So I guess you can make the case for Andrew Wiggins being better than Aaron Gordon because he's been more consistent as a scorer. And scoring matters in the NBA. But we just wanted to get our thoughts on that. Arizona was ranked 6th behind the top 5 teams heading into the preseason, and they've maintained that #1 ranking for an entire month now. So the Wildcats look like that team to beat this year, and it's going to be fun to see which of these teams drops out of the top 5 first, because these are arguably, without a doubt, hands down the top 5 teams in the nation. 4 deserve to be in the Final Four, and the Wisconsin Badgers are on a mission to prove why they deserve a top 5 spot as well, being one of the 4 undefeated teams, along with Arizona, Syracuse, and Wichita State. Michigan State, my pick to win it all this year, to cut down the nets after beating Kentucky's in the mix as well. And Kentucky could make the Elite Eight, but I don't see them getting to the Final Four. This is really going to be a fun second half of the season in terms of college basketball. And maybe we'll make another weekly update next Monday using Spreaker. All right, this is Chris Ransom. Peace out.